She was a waitress with calloused hands and aching feet, juggling trays and dodging insults in a place where people barely made eye contact with her. On a rainy Tuesday morning, with sleep still tugging at her eyes, she stumbled slightly, just enough to spill an entire cup of hot coffee down the front of a billionaire's pristine $1,000 suit. The room froze. The chatter, the clinking cutlery, even the jazz humming from the ceiling speakers. Everything stopped. She waited for the yelling, the firing, maybe even a lawsuit. But instead, he looked at her and smiled. 1 week later, she was standing in a marble-floored office with a view of the city skyline, being offered the CEO position of his company. What had he seen in her in that single chaotic moment? And why did she almost say no? The diner was always a little too bright at 7 a.m., fluorescent lights buzzing like mosquitoes, the air thick with the smell of burnt toast and overcooked eggs. Maya had been working the morning shift for 2 years now, and Tuesdays were always the slowest, but somehow the most exhausting. She moved like a wind-up doll in need of new springs, wiping tables, refilling sugar jars, and pouring coffee into mugs that never seemed to empty. Her apron was stained with syrup from a kid's meltdown an hour earlier, and she hadn't even had a sip of her own coffee yet. Then he walked in. Not the usual truckers or bleary-eyed college kids. No, this man wore confidence like a designer coat. Tall, sharp, in a navy blue suit that didn't belong anywhere near a place that served $3 pancakes. He took a seat by the window, not bothering with the menu, and checked his watch with the kind of impatience that said, "I don't wait." Maya approached, pen and pad in hand, her nerves tap-dancing under her skin. "Coffee?" she asked, voice scratchy but polite. He nodded once, barely looking up. She turned, filled the mug, and spun back around. Her foot caught on the leg of a chair. The mug flew. Coffee arced like a slow-motion horror movie and landed squarely on his chest. Gasps, a clatter of utensils. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Maya froze, her face draining of color. Her mouth opened, then closed again like a fish on dry land. He looked down at his soaked shirt, then up at her. She braced for the explosion, but instead, he laughed, a short, stunned laugh. And then, the strangest thing, he said, "I needed that." Maya blinked. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't mean." He raised a hand. "Do you always serve reality with your coffee?" She had no idea what that meant, but it made her laugh, a shaky, surprised laugh. And just like that, the tension in the diner cracked open like an egg on the griddle. Maya scrambled to grab a handful of napkins, her hands trembling as she dabbed at the billionaire's suit, not really helping, just trying to do something. The rest of the diner slowly returned to its usual hum, though more than a few eyes stayed fixed on the strange scene unfolding by the window. "I swear I'll pay for dry cleaning, or a new shirt, or both," Maya babbled, unable to meet his eyes. He tilted his head slightly, amused. "Relax, it's just fabric. Besides, it wasn't even my favorite." She stared at him now, puzzled. Most rich types who wandered in here by mistake were quick to insult the staff, demand refunds, or leave one-star Yelp reviews about the smell of the peasants. But this guy, he was calm, amused even. He reached into his jacket pocket, miraculously untouched by the spill, and pulled out a sleek black business card. "Logan Brooks," he said. "CEO of Astral Tech." Maya blinked. That name sounded vaguely familiar. Something from the news? Tech startup? $1 billion IPO? "I'm Maya," she said quietly, still clutching soggy napkins. He slid the card across the table. If you ever want a job that doesn't require scraping syrup off vinyl booths, give me a call. She laughed, thinking it was a joke. Sure, maybe after I win the lottery. Logan just smiled again and took a sip from the second cup of coffee she poured him, this time without incident. You'd be surprised how fast your luck can change. He left a $100 bill under his mug and walked out without another word. Maya stood frozen, staring at the door long after it stopped swinging. A week later, she found that same business card in the back pocket of her apron, wrinkled, coffee-stained, and very real. Maya didn't call the number right away. For 6 days, she moved through her routine like someone watching their life through a dirty window, taking orders, cleaning tables, slipping into bed exhausted, and waking up dreading the same loop. But every time she put on her apron, that crumpled card seemed to whisper from her pocket. Just fabric, she muttered to herself one morning, recalling his words. Who says that after being baptized in diner coffee? On the 7th day, she sat at the bus stop in the gray light of dawn, staring at the card like it might catch fire in her hands. Finally, she dialed the number. A smooth, professional voice answered. Astral Tech, Executive Office. Hi, this is Maya. I met Mr. Brooks at the... he gave me his card after I spilled, coffee. There was a pause, then a chuckle. Ah, the infamous coffee spill. One moment, please. Before she could back out, hold music kicked in. 10 seconds later, a familiar voice came on the line. Maya, I was starting to think you lost the card. I almost did, she said, along with my mind. Logan laughed. You free this afternoon? She blinked. What? I want to show you something. Dress however you're comfortable. I'm sending a car. Click. Maya stared at her phone. What just happened? 3 hours later, a black SUV pulled up outside the diner. Her coworkers pressed against the window like kids at a candy store, whispering and speculating as Maya climbed in, still wearing her beat-up sneakers and thrift store jeans. The driver didn't speak. 30 minutes and a blur of city streets later, they arrived in front of a glass tower that looked like it belonged on the cover of a science fiction novel. The words, Astral Tech Headquarters, gleamed across the front in clean, silver lettering. And Maya? She felt like someone had ripped her out of her own life and dropped her into a different movie entirely. The lobby was a cathedral of glass and steel, marble floors so polished Maya could see her own anxious reflection. A receptionist in a crisp navy blazer greeted her with a warm smile and asked for her name. Maya. Carter, she said hesitantly. The woman's smile didn't waver. Mr. Brooks is expecting you. Top floor. She was led to a private elevator that rose so fast her ears popped. When the doors opened, it was like stepping onto another planet. The penthouse office wasn't just an office. It was a panoramic view of the city, floor-to-ceiling windows spilling sunlight across sleek furniture and living walls of greenery. And there, leaning against a desk like he didn't own the whole skyline, was Logan Brooks. Maya, he said, genuinely pleased. Glad you came. She stood awkwardly in the doorway, hands shoved into her hoodie pocket. This place, it's like a spaceship. He laughed. You should see the lab. Then, without ceremony, he motioned for her to sit and slid a thick folder across the desk. Read this. She opened it hesitantly, expecting legal jargon or maybe a non-disclosure form. Instead, she found a proposal. A full-on company initiative called Roots, a new project designed to develop education and training programs for underserved communities. Scholarships, tech labs in inner-city schools, partnerships with small local businesses. She looked up, brows furrowed. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I want you to run it." Her jaw dropped. "Me?" Logan leaned forward. "I've had a dozen candidates pitch me ideas on how to give back, but none of them know what it means to fight for rent, to work double shifts, to wipe syrup off a booth with someone else's insult still ringing in your ears. You do." I'm not qualified," she stammered. "You're more qualified than you think, and I've got a whole team to support you. I don't want another suit with a polished resume. I want heart, and I think you've got it." Maya stared at him, stunned. Somewhere in her chest, something cracked open. Hope, maybe. Or fear. Or both. For the rest of that afternoon, Maya toured the entire Astral Tech campus, labs buzzing with innovation, floors filled with engineers and designers, and even a meditation room that smelled faintly of lavender and ambition. Everyone she passed looked at her with polite curiosity. She must have looked wildly out of place in her faded jeans and scuffed sneakers, but nobody said a word. At one point, she stopped in front of a room labeled Roots, Think Tank. Inside were whiteboards filled with diagrams, a team of young developers tossing around ideas, and a giant wall map with pins in low-income neighborhoods across the country. Logan stood beside her, arms crossed. "This is yours, if you want it." Her stomach flipped. It sounded like something out of a movie. She was a diner waitress. She didn't even have a college degree. What business did she have leading a division in a billion-dollar company? But another part of her, the part that had kept her afloat through years of scraped-together rent and double shifts, leaned in. She turned to Logan. "You're serious?" As a heart attack, she blew out a breath. "Then I need one thing." "Name it." "A coffee machine in that room. A good one. No more sad office pods." Logan burst out laughing, the sound echoing through the hall. "Done." Hoy, that was the moment she knew she might actually do this. By the time she returned home that night, her feet were sore, her brain fried, but something inside her felt electric. Alive. She looked around her tiny apartment, the peeling paint, the crooked lamp, the stack of unpaid bills, and for the first time in years it didn't depress her. It reminded her how far she'd come. The next morning, Maya walked into the diner, handed in her apron, and thanked her manager, who blinked at her like she'd just said she was moving to Mars. And in a way, she was. The first few weeks at Astral Tech felt like trying to drink from a fire hose. Maya was introduced to more acronyms than she'd heard in her entire life, sat in on meetings where people spoke in sleek tech jargon, and tried not to panic every time someone handed her a tablet instead of a paper folder. Her imposter syndrome screamed in her ear daily. But Maya had grit. She asked questions, lots of them. She stayed late, listened more than she spoke, and slowly started understanding how things worked. And when it came to the Roots project, something in her just clicked. She spoke with a fire the others didn't have, because this wasn't theory for her. She had lived it. She knew the frustration of outdated school books, of internet cafes doubling as classrooms, of parents working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. So when she presented her first draft plan to the Roots team, complete with partnerships from local nonprofits, mentorship programs, and real-world internships, no one laughed. In fact, half the room nodded with eyes wide open. One of the interns even whispered, Finally, someone who gets it. Meanwhile, Logan watched from the back of the room, arms folded, a quiet smile tugging at his mouth. Later that day, he pulled her aside. "How do you feel?" "Like I ran a marathon with my shoelaces tied together." He chuckled. "You crushed it." She looked at him seriously. "Why me, Logan? Why not someone with a degree from Stanford and a 10-page resume?" He tapped his chest. "Because they'd build a project. You're building a purpose." And just like that, Maya felt her doubts shrink. Just a little. Things escalated faster than anyone expected. 3 months into the program, Roots had already launched 2 pilot sites, one in the Bronx, the other in South Chicago. Both centers offered free evening coding classes, career mentorship, and community childcare. Local news outlets picked up the story. Then, national ones. Maya found herself on a panel at a tech conference in San Francisco, sandwiched between 2 Fortune 500 execs who kept using words like synergy and disruptive scalability. When the moderator turned to her, she simply said, "Sometimes all a kid needs is Wi-Fi, a warm chair, and someone who doesn't give up on them." The crowd went silent, then erupted in applause. Backstage, one of the CEOs leaned in and whispered, "You've got media training, right?" Maya laughed. "Nope, just a mom who didn't take crap from anyone." By the time they returned to New York, Roots had become more than a side project. It was Astral Tech's fastest growing division. Investors started asking about it during board meetings. Reporters wanted interviews. Logan even hinted at spinning it off into its own foundation, with Maya at the helm. One evening, after a long day filled with meetings, logistics calls, and surprise visits from city officials, Maya collapsed onto the office couch. Logan walked in holding 2 mugs of coffee, real coffee from the machine she insisted on, and handed her one. "You're a machine," he said. She smiled, exhausted. "I'm held together by caffeine and panic." He laughed. Then, more quietly, "You know, you're doing more than I ever imagined, and I imagined a lot." Maya looked at him. "I just didn't want to waste the shot." He raised his mug. "You didn't. You aimed higher." They clinked mugs. 2 wildly different worlds, somehow stitched together by one spilled cup of coffee. 6 months after the coffee incident, Maya stood on a stage beneath a banner that read, "Roots Summit 1.0." The room was filled with educators, tech leaders, journalists, and families from neighborhoods that rarely got invited to anything with a chandelier. She wore a tailored blazer, not flashy, just clean, and a pair of earrings her mother gave her before she passed. Her palms were sweaty, but her voice was steady. She told stories, not from books, but from life, about the kid in South Chicago who coded his first website and used it to help his mom sell homemade candles. About the Bronx teen who said Roots was the first place where someone remembered his name. She ended with a slide showing a map of the U.S., dotted with pins. "We started with 2 centers," she said. "By next year, we'll have 20. Thunderous applause. Backstage, Logan waited with a grin. "You're officially more popular than me." She rolled her eyes. "Took long enough." Then his face turned serious. "I've been thinking. I want to step back. Not retire. Just refocus. Astral Tech needs a new kind of leadership, and I think it's time you moved beyond Roots." Her eyes widened. "You're not saying—" "I'm offering you the COO position. Eventually, CEO, if you want it." Maya blinked. Her mind spun. From waitress To this. I dropped coffee on you, she whispered, half laughing. Best hiring process I've ever had. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked out over the city skyline through the green room window, the same skyline she used to dream about during double shifts. Then she turned to him. Okay, but I want a new coffee machine. Logan burst out laughing. And Maya, she walked out to meet her future, no longer invisible, no longer small, just exactly where she was meant to be. Sometimes, life changes not with a grand opportunity, but with a tiny accident, a stumble, a spill, a moment so ordinary it almost slips past. But behind that moment may be something extraordinary, if someone dares to see it. Maya didn't just accept a second chance. She built bridges from it, bridges for others like her. People who were always told they weren't enough, weren't qualified, didn't belong. So the next time the world spills coffee on your plans or laughs when you speak, remember, one small moment can lead to everything. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a little hope today. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or tell us, have you ever had a coffee spill moment that changed your life? We'd love to hear it.